Welcome to the Transform Talent podcast, brought to you by Manpower Group. I'm Georgina Huntley. Now the new year is here, we thought it might be an idea to put on our mystic caps and pore over predictions for what's in store for the world of talent for 2024. 2023 saw an explosion in technology with the race to create more and more sophisticated AI. No doubt that will continue to play a huge part in shaping the world of work, but what else should we be prepared for in the year ahead? With Manpower Group returning from Davos 24, it's evident to us that the focus for this year is around AI, the green transition, and the skills transition at scale. To answer this question and talk about what's in store for talent in 2024, I am delighted to be joined by our guests Becky Frankiewicz and Michael Stull. Becky is Chief Commercial Officer and President of Manpower Group North America and has been described by Fast Company as one of the most creative people in the industry. She anticipates and adapts to fast-changing consumer demands, and I believe this makes her the number one person for us to talk to as we cast our predictions on what to expect in 2024. Becky, welcome to the show.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
We also have Michael Stull. Michael is the recently appointed country manager for Manpower Group in the UK and has played a fundamental role in Manpower Group global leadership teams for over 14 years, working as the CMO and leading the Manpower brand in the US. Also, Michael, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Georgie.
So, it would be great for us to get in summary what the year ahead looks like for us in terms of talent. But before we dig into that conversation, guys, for those in the audience who aren't fully aware, can I ask you to give us a brief introduction of who you are and your expertise? And Becky, if I can come to you first on that one.
Yeah, happy to do so. Thanks for having me. First and foremost, I'm a mother to 3 amazing daughters, and so that's in the first position for me as my many jobs. But for Manpower Group, I'm the Global Chief Commercial Officer, which means I look after sales, marketing, and insights for the world as we define it. And I'm also the region president for North America. And I love how both of those go together because I get the operating view as well as the global functional view, which I think helps me be more informed and also see the real world in real time, what's happening in the operating business. In terms of my background, I spent most of my life in consumer goods or FMCG companies. And what that taught me is really to be a student of humans, a student of consumers in that environment. And how that translates here is I'm a student of workers and of employers. And I've really seen trends that I saw in the consumer world in terms of people choosing when, how, and where they shop translate now very effectively into the world of work with people choosing when, where, and how we consume work or how we contribute work. And so that gives me a bit of a unique perspective sometimes into our business.
Yeah, thanks, Becky. A great blend of perspectives there to get the output that we're looking for. And Michael, how about yourself?
So like Becky, I'm a father of 3. I think the interesting thing with Becky and I is that we call each other by our full names. So I always call her Becky Frankiewicz, and she always calls me Michael Stull. And this is when we're not like in a regular conversation. It is one of the oddest things that has happened, and I blame Becky for really setting that standard. But I continue to follow it. For me, my role is within the UK. I run our businesses here, which is really kind of full service around the talent life cycle, working with in commercial staffing and professional staffing, recruitment process outsourcing, the MSP world, and talent development and leadership development. So it is kind of a full cycle where I'm working with our clients and really supporting workers out in the UK. My background is one of really, I know probably a whole bunch of, or I know about a lot of different things, but very little about it. I started in finance. I got into technology. Somehow I rolled that into marketing. And then I moved into the talent space 14 years ago when I started with Manpower Group. So I think my perspective that I come in with is just being able to apply a whole bunch of disciplines into solving the talent issues that we have.
Brilliant. Thanks, Michael. I am now nervous, though, whether it's good if you call me by my full name or just my first name. I'm not sure which way is a good thing to go.
I think it's a Becky thing. I don't think it's me.
Okay, that's cool. That's fine. Becky, so if you're calling me Georgina Huntley, I'm going to take it as a compliment.
Yes.
Excellent.
No, it's unique to Michael. I only call Michael Stull. Michael Stull, always.
It rolls off the tongue. Fab. Okay, so I'm going to start with Michael, if I come to you on this one first. So in 2023, there was an awful lot of change, economic changes. I just want to ask from you, first of all, what was the biggest lesson you learned from going into 2023 and where we ended up in the talent space?
Yeah, I think it's a good question because 23 did not really end up where I thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. I think in many ways the talent market is one we haven't seen of before. And and when I'm listening to podcasts, a lot of times it's in a car with my wife, and she loves listening to these health podcasts, and they're always talking about, and she's always talking to me about being skinny fat. Shouldn't be skinny fat because that means, you're not really healthy. And I think in some ways, this employment market, the talent market, has some of those attributes. It looks great on the surface. We have great unemployment numbers. We can continually add jobs. But on the other hand, you see underneath where there's still massive skill shortages. And so there's a whole bunch of underlying issues. I was not expecting that for the year. And I think the other thing that it really just came forward to me was this notion of recruitment really starts with retention and skilling. And if you get your retention and engagement right with your people, and you give people opportunities by skilling them into areas that are in demand, recruitment's going to take care of itself. And I think that was a great lesson learned for me as we continued through 23.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Michael. And Becky, how about yourself? Your lessons learned in the talent space for 2023?
Well, I wasn't quite ready to hear skinny fat on this podcast, but there we go. I actually know what that means, so that was fun. I would say that the big talk was the pre-pandemic world of work last year. So go back to January a year ago, and it was, hey, when are we going back to before? Back to normal was something I was frequently asked by CEOs and CHROs around the world. And what I've decided is there is no back to normal. There's only back to new. And we think new is what we're doing today. I think the rules of engagement for work are now constantly going to be in change, both by impact from AI, green transformations, et cetera, impacted by the global supply of labor, and some of the structural trends that we're seeing around fewer people being born, population growth being concentrated in very few areas, not in the most developed countries, by the way. So that the way of working has forever changed. Therefore, the world of work has changed. Therefore, there is no normal. There is only new, and new will be constantly reinvented. So that's what I'd say the surprise that I had, because even me in January a year ago, I was going, well, maybe this does stabilize. Maybe, everybody comes back to the office and we're normal. But I don't think there is a normal. There's only a new, and it's going to be continuous.
Yeah, I think that I love that back to new phrase. And when I'm talking to a lot of people around their talent, it does kind of fall into two camps for me. I do see the camp that embraces what has changed and that it's going to continue to change. And on the other hand, I hear a lot of pushback around, and they'll automatically go into the generations and the differences in the generations and blame it on that. But the youth of today are determining how we're going to be working in the future.
Absolutely. And I wonder if we think about that, and we talked about a lot, I know it comes through as one of the themes from Davos was the impact of AI, and it has been conversations through 2023. But what do you think, or what are your thoughts? And I'll come to you, Becky, first on this one, on how really we consider augmented intelligence and how that can enhance talent for organizations. So rather than just looking at in some cases, the fear of AI, the augmentation of humans and AI, and how that can really benefit organizations from a talent perspective.
Yeah, so I think the challenge we have as leaders, and I'll speak directly to AI because it was a hot topic at the World Economic Forum, is how do we increasingly humanize work while digitizing work? And those two things feel at odds when you're talking about automation, because one side of AI is automation, the other side of AI is augmentation, which was your question. So augmentation means technology that walks alongside me as a human and makes me more effective, makes me better, choose better, prompts if I'm doing job descriptions, as we think about in our business. And so that really is an area that enhances people's lives. Our challenge is we talk about AI way up here, like it's this big thing that's going to take everyone's job. And there's a lot of research that says that's not necessarily the case. And we can talk more about that if you'd like. But I think we have to bring AI down and say, how's it going to improve my day-to-day life? Like, what is it going to make better for me? And there's some great examples that we all know of, Netflix that says, hey, if you like this, you like that. That was the beginning of more generative AI, predictive AI, to say, this is what, we think Becky's going to like next if she watched this. Now that was predictive. Now it's becoming generative. She likes this whole field of things. What about this new field of things that's adjacent to that, but may not be in the prediction algorithm? So I think we have to bring it down to how it's going to help people's lives to remove some of the fear, because our Manpower Group research says about half of workers around the world are positive about AI and about half are negative or neutral. And when you dig into the neutrals, it's even more concerning because honestly, they're indifferent, like they don't understand. And with the pace of skills changing with the pace of technology, we have to make sure people understand how AI is going to improve their life to reduce some of the fear, but also how it's going to improve their work by giving them better information to make better decisions and become, a better human.
So to your point, before we talk about the augmentation, it's about getting people or helping people to understand the positive impact and understand the how they can embrace AI to support a better lifestyle for them, whether that be through their work or other areas. Michael, what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, so if you think about the recruiter, which Becky brought up, how do you make the recruiter's life better? You can really allow them to focus on what they love to do. What do recruiters love to do? They love talking to people and they love putting them into work. Some of the other things like job descriptions, nobody likes to write a job description. We cut and paste and, they're usually bad out there. And so what can AI do? AI can help us write job descriptions and alleviate that burden. I think all of these transactions that we have, all the decisions that we're making around, am I going to take this job or not? Am I going to hire this person or not? Such massively important decisions for every single person out there. AI, if done right, if we get that information around the preferences, around environment and culture, we can really use it to make sure that we are taking that right job, that we are on the right career path where I can be successful. So I think those are some of the ways to really unleash AI in a positive way. I think on the other side, and I hear this a lot, is around the tripping of the algorithm. I think now there's an undercurrent with recruiters of, hey, these people are just out here trying to trip the algorithm so they get up to the top of the list, and I need to make sure that that's not going to happen. So I think in some ways it also creates more need for the human touch to make sure that we're working through and getting it right in terms of how we leverage AI.
Well, there's a couple of points there, Michael, on the point Becky raised around the people's perception of AI. What role do recruiters play in not only how AI supports their role, but how we help educate and support our candidates and the people that we're working with to embrace the opportunity that AI offers for them as well?
Yeah, and the hiring manager. I think is the other big one that I would bring to the forefront, because the hiring manager can really get beyond their unconscious bias. They can use the algorithms, the machine learnings to really be finding the diversity that they need in their teams to be successful, to hire people that they wouldn't have thought of. And I know, Becky, you have brought this up before, and I love this notion of the fourth candidate. What is that fourth candidate?
Yes, I want to build on that in two ways. So first, I'll pick up on the fourth candidate. So the fourth candidate is a concept that we actually started under Michael's leadership when he was in the US business of Manpower. And what we did is say, okay, there are three candidates that perfectly fit your description, employer. We're going to bring a fourth that fits either, adjacent capabilities and or soft skills that we know make you successful in that role. And so these three fit your years of experience, et cetera. This one actually is a fit for the role in a way that you can't see. And that became the fourth candidate, which also brings in diversity, levels the playing field for skills, et cetera. So I think that's really important. The other thing I want to go back to is, every time we've had a disruption and innovation in the world of work or the world, whether it's the Industrial Revolution, the invention of the PC, the internet, et cetera, it has been a net job creator. From everything that we see, the companies who are transforming the fastest digitally are creating more jobs than companies who aren't. And that becomes, support for AI yet again will be a net job creator for the world. And so we're very confident in that future. Again, something else I think we need to talk about. It does not mean that there won't be skill disruption. There will be, but there'll also be job opportunity.
I'm fascinated by this point on the fourth candidate and the approach or the impact that has on the switch to skills-based hiring, and just getting but it's a shift towards that perspective a little bit more. Wondering if I can get your thoughts a bit more on that, Becky.
Yeah, so as we were going into the pandemic globally, talent was a challenge, as we all know. One of the things that we identified is helping employers think about what skills are required for a role versus what's desired for a role. So what's required versus desired. That then opened the conversation around what I call below the line on the job description. So, it's all about must have this, and you get to the line that says your degree, a degree in, 10 years of work experience in, et cetera, et cetera. The below the line is where we first started pushing on you don't need 10 years experience in coding to actually learn how to be a Python coder in today's environment, notably as AI comes and does a lot of that work for you. And so that was the first way it started, is how do we open up the talent pool in a time when we were talent constrained? Now what's happened is we've seen it opens up diversity. So someone doesn't need 10 years, they could need 0 years of experience, but have these soft skills around, communications, around bringing others with them, that actually in a low code, no code environment makes them a viable fourth candidate. Learnability, curiosity, those kind of soft skills become much more defining on what you can do as a candidate versus what you have done on your resume or in your past. And so the combination of that led us to this concept of we need to be bringing in more talent that is capable, although may not fit every detail of the job description that the client created.
And therefore opening up these talent pools that are totally untapped at the moment, and in a position where we are struggling to find talent or fill roles, then that is a viable route for everyone to be going. Michael,
the talent that is gold to me are the individuals who can connect ideas. Look, with all the information that we have out there, having that information doesn't really have any value anymore. It's really how you connect that information, how you discern against that information that you're getting. People that have the empathy to gather in outside perspectives of others. Really, really good skill to have, that ability to listen, to ask, to take in that perspective. And then on top of that growth kind of mindset where you're always learning, you have great learnability. When you think about skills, if you have those skills, this is what I tell my kids, this is what I tell anyone that's looking for any kind of career advice. You have those skills, you really can do almost anything you put your mind to. And to me, that's just like opens up so many doors for so many people, which is fantastic. But the skill-based hiring, the skill-based mindset is not easy for organizations to get to, because in many ways it's a whole different different approach. You got to get your hands dirty and understand the jobs and the skills that are in there. And to Becky's point, the ones that really, really matter, and the ones that don't, that you're just kind of putting in there because you've used to doing that over time. Switching out of this notion of filling a job and into placing a person, that's powerful. That's different, though. Putting the assessment ahead of the intuition of the hiring manager or the preference of the hiring manager and the role of the manager in a skill-based organization. I think these are all big changes that we're going to continue to work through. But as work changes and the requirements of the skills that we need to get the work done change, we're going to have to do this.
I'll just say, how exciting is it to live in a world, or for our kids to inherit a world where you got your degree, what your degree is in, what you studied, what you've done for the last 5, 10, 15 years is less important than your capability of doing something new. And I think that really unleashes human potential at the exact time where we have AI coming in to take over a lot of the mundane, repetitive skills that we don't need humans to do. I think it's the perfect combustion, if you will, of unleashing humans while also leveraging technology.
Ooh, I like that.
Absolutely.
The combustion of unleashing human
love
potential.
that, Becky. And honestly,
That's hot.
I mean, we could probably have a whole other podcast on this, but I think there's a huge part that, there's elements that support all of that. And there's a huge part that education plays in supporting young people's perception as they come through the education system as well. But I'm sure we'll pick up that on another podcast at another point in time. I just want to go back to Michael's points, and he talked about the role that managers play, and I wonder how has that changed the landscape and the way Manpower Group operates with our clients in what you've talked through there. How have you seen that change over the last year?
From my standpoint, how I perceive this, and I talked a little bit about the beginning. Our role in talent has been traditionally around, the buying of talent. We recruit, we can acquire skills, and also around borrowing in our contingent workforces that we have, that we offer out to our clients, the opportunities that we give workers to work through that avenue. It has moved beyond that. And so I think a couple of areas that are really important for us now is skill building, right? We have to build skills to be able to offer value out to employers and even more importantly, out to the workers. We have to be able to bridge people from one career to the other career. That's very different, and that takes certainly education, but it also takes exposure to new types of jobs, bringing people along. Becky talked about that with AI, bringing people along, giving them the education behind it, and then ultimately the experiences to learn how to be successful in whatever their new career paths that they're taking. And I think the other one that I think a lot about is this notion of assessment around certainly hiring decisions, but the assessment around where people can be successful and what they need to be successful, that feedback loop, where they should invest their time is really, really important. And then on top of that, the role of the manager or the role of us in many ways is how to get the person to the next job. That's really something that we don't often think about and don't talk about enough because, we're in this hyper competitive, performance-driven world where we're, looking at today. But if you can bring person to that next job, that's where you really, I think, create value. That's where you create a sustainable workforce that's going to make you competitive in the world today.
Yeah, and I'll add, so I think Michael did a beautiful job talking about the candidate, which, I believe who holds the talent holds the future given the structural changes in population growth that are going to happen. But I'd like to address the other side of that equation, which is the client side. So I spend a lot of my time in my commercial role meeting with clients around the world. And what has really surprised me is I'm asked almost the same question, whether I'm in Poland, whether I'm in Germany, whether I'm in Paris, France, or sitting in Chicago, Illinois. I'm asked the same couple of questions. One, I'm asked, when will the talent supply loosen? So that's always a top of mind agenda. But secondly, I'm asked increasingly, how do we as employer, what responsibility do we have around upskilling and reskilling, which Michael addressed from the candidate side. And so for us, your question around how are we engaging differently with clients, it really is, we are strategic talent planners, and we really sit down and talk about, okay, who's the talent that you have, what's the talent you're going to need tomorrow, of this talent, who can actually move up, who cannot move up, getting to buy, bridge or borrow, and how mobile is your talent inside your company, and how can we help you either with some automation or with some new influx of talent, build the company you want to have in the future. But that, while staying core to our purpose, which is we believe in providing meaningful and sustainable employment. We do that with talent for our clients, but that's the core of what we believe. But to do that now takes a lot more strategic talent perspective from us as a company, partnering with our clients. And it also takes our clients sharing things with us they haven't traditionally on what is their roadmap for talent, what is their AI or their green initiative, whatever it may be in their particular industry. We have to have more visibility into their strategy, their company strategy, in order to build their talent strategy. And that has elevated the role that we play and elevated the role that we are capable of playing. Like, we've had to bring new capabilities to bear with our clients to help truly be talent advisors and talent strategists, all in service of sustainable employment and meaningful employment for our people.
Yeah, and just the other thing that I want to throw in there, Becky, which I think is super cool that we have as an organization, is we have all of these relationships. We have all these relationships with workers. We have all these relationships with employers. And we get to gather all of that information, and we get to see what happens. Did they take the job? Were they successful on the job? Did they stay on the job? And that insight that we have is so powerful for everybody. I just think it's such a cool thing that we can do and continue to build upon as an organization.
I think we're in a really unique position to be able to support in that aspect, and need to recognise that as we transition our skills as well, because this skills transition impacts us as an organisation as well as it does our clients. So transition's the way we're thinking about things. So I'm going to change tact slightly and come to you, Becky. You've been in Davos this last week, and you recently spoke at Davos in the World Economic Forum to discuss a people-first green transition. I just want to tap into what your key learnings were from that and how they might shape up in 2024.
Yes, I'll take just half a step back and say the hot topics at the forum were AI and the green transition. And I can't find, not only do I not remember, I can't find, as I look back in history, another time where we've had this dual transformation happening at the same time that impacts the world of work. Yes, we have green, and yes, we have AI at the exact same time. So, some people would say that's daunting. I'd say that's super exciting because we have the capability to rise to that occasion. Specific to green, and I think a difference, because AI is being talked about, but business cases are being formed, pilots are happening. It's not quite here yet. It hasn't landed. Green is here. Green is being invested in today. 70% of employers that we polled around the world said they're seeking green talent today. They have the need today. And the big message we had at Davos, which was about the people-powered green transition, was you shouldn't have to make a choice between people and the planet. If anything, we need governments and companies to actually increase their commitment around people transition and skill transition to match their public commitments around fossil fuel reduction, because both those things go hand in hand, people and planet. We just did this whole study with one of our major clients in Europe around green. And what we found is half the jobs in the green transition are going to be quarter turns on existing jobs. So what does that mean? Think about a construction worker that's going to build with sustainable materials, someone who lays copper pipe that's now going to lay fiber optic cables, like really practical. I can do this, therefore I can do that. Half the jobs. 46% of the jobs in green already exist. A solar installer, a solar engineer, already jobs that are out there that we know. Only 4% of jobs in the green transition are new. And they're cool jobs. So one of my favorites, because again, my background in consumer goods, is an edible package design engineer. So fast forward a year, we could all be eating all our packages, no need for composting or recycling. We just consume our packages. But that to me is exciting. So only 4% are these net new. What that means for us as a people-centered organization and for our clients who we serve is there's no reason to believe we can't upskill and reskill with small incremental, I like to call it nano skilling, not this big go get a whole new degree or a new certification. I'm talking about nano skilling that helps people move from laying copper to laying fiber optic with just a little bit of adjustment. And these are future-proof roles that give people the sustainable employment we want them to have. And so that was my big takeaway from the forum and from our own research, is that this can be a people-powered green transition. And honestly, because it's here, it has to be a people-powered green transition, because it will be people that provide the green fuel for the planet in the future.
It is. I think it's really exciting, and the passion comes through from you when you're talking about it. That actually flips it into that, rather than the daunting prospect of what we can hear. Actually, it's an amazing opportunity for us and for generations to come as well. And Michael, in your conversations with your clients in the UK, are you hearing what's the sort of the temperature on that here?
Well, in the UK, green sits at the forefront of so many discussions. Just from everything that was experienced last year with fuel prices. It's very competitive as well. You hear the UK government talking about how to compete against the US, how to bring in manufacturers. And I think a lot of these discussions come back to, do we have the skills that are there to compete in this space? Do we have the investment in the people that can develop batteries? Do we have the engineers, the technicians across the country that can do these roles? And so I think from my standpoint, what we're mostly seeing here is, one, the recognition of how important it is. I think that's pretty well established. And two, how are we going to solve? How are we going to compete? And I think that is one of the big questions for the UK in general. You see the US with these big investments. You see Europe banding together to be able to compete, and the UK needs to find their place.
I've really enjoyed the conversation with you both this evening, and I want to move on to one last question for each of you, and it's a big question. I want to take from each of you one big prediction for the world of talent in 2024. So, Michael, I'm going to come to you first, giving Becky a moment to consider that, and put the pressure on you, Michael. So what's your big prediction, one big prediction for 2024?
That's a fun one. That's pressure too, because it's just one. I don't know if this is actually going to occur, but my dream is that we somehow figure out how to use AI and all of these powerful computers to pull in all the information that we have, to be able to get a common skill taxonomy across jobs. So if we could come up with a common skill taxonomy, it would make our lives so much easier when it came to developing people, to moving from one job to the next. it seems like that is something that should be so close in our reach that somebody smart is going to figure that out. And then when we do that, we can finally get blockchain, which we have talked about forever, and really be able to hold people's capabilities and skills and ambitions into something that is really usable to create a much better world of employment with much better fluidity, with much better upward mobility, and then ultimately, just better outcomes. And then underneath all of that, I'm going to take a second one, is that AI figures out how we're going to have a 4-day work week for all of us.
There's some bold, big predictions there, Michael, but I'm loving the reaching for the stars there. So, Becky, let me come to you on that one. What's your big prediction for 2024 in the world of talent?
Yeah, so I'd say it's going to be talent mobility. Like the word of the year is going to be talent mobility, or the words of the year are talent mobility. The ability for people to move across an organization. It's almost a requirement, honestly, for companies when we don't have a new workforce coming and growth is stagnating. And I also think, yes, it's required, but it's also desired. Like when the crisis happened, the relationship between employer and employees did change and shift more towards the empowerment of the worker. Essential workers realized how essential they are, and that was also an unlock mentally. But I think with that unlock, it's not just about work-life balance and in control your schedule. Yes, it's that. It's also learning on my terms and the realization that I can control as a worker my learning path, and therefore I can control my potential. And that to me is very exciting. And mobility gives me the avenue to exercise my potential in an environment where I've already demonstrated success. And so I think talent mobility is both required, and I think it is now going to be culturally sought after, and it's good for companies, it's good for the employees, and it's fantastic for our future generations because it gives totally new talent pathways inside companies. So to me, talent mobility.
Brilliant. Some amazing predictions from you both there for 2024. I'm looking forward to touching back with you at the end of the year or the beginning of next year to see where we've got to on those. And that's it for today's episode of the Transform Talent podcast. Thanks to Becky and Michael for your time and giving your predictions on what we should expect in the world of talent in 2024. For further reference points and reading, we've some great reports recently released that you can access from our podcast notes. There's the Green Jobs Report, Becky's blog from the World Economic Forum, and the Ultimate Reskilling Guide. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in once again, and please make sure you subscribe to our podcast on your preferred platform so you don't miss an episode. See you next time.